I met Jenna at a Presbyterian meeting a couple months ago, and I said, I'm really excited to be up in Taos, call on me and use me. And she immediately said, cool, you will be preaching. So here I am. And I am very excited to be here, but as kind of comes with my personality, I did a lot of planning to come up here. So any of you who arrived early saw me desperately scribbling notes into my bulletin and organizing, and it's just kind of part of who I am. I have a type A personality. And if you know me at all, this is a self-roast that I often make while toting my dog-covered planner. I love organizing. Everything in my room sits in a particular place. My stuffed animal, Bernie's mountain dog, sits on the right-hand corner of my comfy chair. My planner is organized by dates and times, stickers, if I have them on hand, and upcoming to-do lists. I don't even want to mention the lists and lists that are in the notes section of my phone. And my administrative job at an HIV/AIDS clinic in Albuquerque is nothing but organizing and organizing and also organizing. The deep control that I like to have over my life often brings me a facade of comfort. If I can manage it, organize it, plan around it, then I convince myself that I am less likely to be thrown by the world into untamable chaos. The young adult volunteer year that I had would have none of this nonsense. For those of you who have less knowledge of what the young adult volunteer program is, let me offer a brief synopsis. The Young Adult Volunteer Program is run by the Presbyterian Church and is an opportunity to be the hands and feet, do the hands and feet work that we are called into for a year. And two of the people that I brought today are actually doing that program this year. So Allison and Emma, you guys are gonna have a great time. We are called YAVs, and we live in communal living, receive a stipend, and work within community organizations as supporters of their vision. It's a fantastic way to live into the grassroots conversations of work being done to better our world. After a long and intense journey through the YAV application, I originally was placed to serve in Colombia, the country. On the day that they pulled this site placement due to limited COVID resource access and civil unrest concerns, I was in the middle of one of the most emotionally tense breakups with my partner at the time. And at no true fault of anyone, I was at the end of my 4th year of undergrad without any plans. When the YAV base site offered me a secondary placement in Albuquerque, I was relieved. This I could plan around. So I moved to New Mexico from just outside of Washington, D.C. on August 28th of 2021. I had Zillowed the place that I would be living and already had a Google Doc of all of the adventures that I would be taking during my year. I came overpacked and a little overwhelmed to this incredibly beautiful state. And I originally had 2 site placements for my year. One with Second Presbyterian Church in Albuquerque, and another with an Immigrants' Rights Center. When I began my conversations with the Immigrants' Rights Center, I discovered that a miscommunication had led them to believe that I was fluent in Spanish, which I'm very much not. They quickly cut communications, leaving my site programmer and I to scramble for another option. When the Santa Fe Dreamer Project reached out to me to say they would need someone part-time, I was in. Yet again, I was closer to the control of my reality from the chaos that I wanted to avoid. 2 site placements in hand, I was ready to organize my way through Albuquerque. I began morning walks through the city to get it down packed. I became fast friends with as many neighbors as possible. To feed the extrovert in me that my housemates at the time were quite the opposite of, and explored as many resources as possible that were available to me. Both job placements were open-ended, allowing me to build and dive into as many projects as I could dream up. The lack of structure was a challenge which I responded to by learning as many of their online platforms as possible. I applied Excel formulas, crafted updated mailing lists and brochures. I revamped websites. I proposed funding ideas, and I developed ideas for projects. I ran Zoom meetings, and my favorite, I attended session meetings, which I always came home with more food to my Yab house than when I came to. It's very exciting. I did as much as I could to fill the space offered to me. In mid-November, my Yab year experience changed quite drastically. A person that we're going to call James was released from detention into my care. He was in the middle of being deported, and this season in my care was supposed to restore some of the dignity and freedom that spaces like detention centers drain from people. I did patch up of the space at Second Presbyterian Church used to house asylum seekers and awaited his arrival, expecting him to stay 2 weeks. He did not. When he came into my care, I had almost no funding for food. I had no concrete knowledge of the deportation system and no understanding of the things needed for a human being who's quite disconnected from the systemic forms of control by immigration organizations in the United States. I was in a chaotic season that I had worked so hard to avoid. In the first 2 weeks, I took walks with James. I showed him where he could purchase groceries. I took him to a bookstore. I connected him to Wi-Fi and cable and did the best I could to show him little ways to find joy in this intense season of his life. A month later, he was still under my care. I was grasping at air. And he was running out of time before he got into serious trouble with ICE. Desperate attempts were made to figure out what COVID restrictions meant for his ability to get home. Being that it was illegal for him to work and he had no access to his funds, he was somehow expected to pay upwards of $400 in COVID testing fees and $2,000 in airline tickets. Local community members in Albuquerque made moments of peace in his experience through food runs and holiday stockings and conversations, but it was an overwhelming situation. And I could go on about how intense of a situation it was, but I'm going to instead offer this. It was a quick turnaround for me, a month in, to step away from the idea that I could manage it all. I needed to call on people and organizations who were better equipped to care for him. And at 2 months under my care, I put James on a bus to California to gain closer access to the resources that he not only needed, but deserved. I was not the hero of this story, and I couldn't plan my way out of this one. This is what we have the honor of learning as children of God in this world. This world was designed by one who can be trusted to have control, but who empowers us to figure that out. When we try to over-design these lives that we've been gifted, we miss this opportunity to trust. We miss the opportunity to lean on a relationship that deeply longs to care for the chaos of this world. I wish my message of relinquishing control could apply to some of our other responsibilities. I'd be quite excited if I could trust my way to my utility bill every month, but that's not this message. We think back to the first Bible story that we read from 1 Kings 19, 3-9. An angel touched Elijah and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked by hot coals and a jar of water. And he ate, and he drank, and he took a nap. Self-care and trust in the Lord became a revival method for Elijah. Not over planning, not organizing, not a Google calendar that's perfectly designed and color-coded, as wonderful as that is, but the self-care that comes from that divine relationship with God. This is not self-care that looks like the Parks and Recreation treat yourself day, spending day without limitations. It's a deep and inner reflection on what your body and faith are salivating for. In Elijah's case, it's quite plain. It's trust and some food and a good nap. Or one of my favorites, when we hear about Jesus teaching his disciples to trust, to walk on water, and then recognizing his own need for a relationship with God and going into the mountains from Matthew 14:23. Going into the mountains alone to spend time with that relationship. And Christianity is not the only space that highlights the goodness of control relinquishing. Barbara O'Brien wrote a piece on the way that Buddhism engages in this kind of ideology. Barbara reflected on the human tendency to cling to the things of this world in order to create definitions for us. We are convinced that there's an idea of me that's in this skin, and that me is separate from the rest of the world, from the everything else. And we work hard to control that narrative, stewing and fuming, worrying and regretting, ruminating and avoiding as part of our practice of holding up this isolating narrative. Or perhaps for some, it's not a narrative of isolation, but we're seeking to control as a method of distraction. Maybe some of you have heard of a sensory deprivation tank. This is a large tank of water, which is heated to about average human body temperature, saturated heavily with salt, and often completely in the dark. In these conditions, the human body will float with ease and lose connections with almost all of your senses. The brain in this space is supposed to enter a deeply relaxed state. And though I have yet to try one of these, I imagine this lack of access to other senses demands an acute awareness of self. With nothing to distract us, with nothing we can manage or control or even tangibly feel, I wonder how we might be better listeners of the voice that we often drown out. You see, to be the individually crafted human beings we're designed to be, we must fall back from trying to be our own gods in this world. Time for rest and reflection, grief and joy, they're all essential to our spiritual and physical well-being. So what does it look like to relinquish control in your life? I encourage you this week to practice the discomfort of releasing control. Acknowledge how it feels to take a step back, to hold dialogue with God instead of grasping for a solution in those places that feel hardest in your life. Take a page from a practice we see in numerous cultures across the world. In these moments of trust given to Yahweh, we see also that they respond to your deep needs. Are you not precious to them in the same way that Elijah was in the first King story that we read? Are you not also beloved? I can't promise you it's initially always going to bring relief, this practice. It's not what the practice is necessarily always about. It's uncomfortable to give away the reins of our life. And that discomfort is an essential part of the practice. Building our relationship with God and with the life here that we have here on earth, it requires us to take those deep breaths in those moments of discomfort. Our healthiest relationships are built on trust and a sharing of this power that we hold. And in the relationship that we build with our Creator, should we not bring the same expectations to the table? Please join me in prayer. God, we thank you for the challenges of this world, for the opportunity to be challenged by them and to be challenged by you, and to know that at the end of the day, it is your hands that we can fall back into, and it's your plan and the narrative that you develop that we can be in conversation with. Lord, thank you for these moments of peace and quiet and deep breaths, and allow this week to be another opportunity for us to delve into relationship with you. Amen.